Welcome back, everybody. I am Ben Parker. That is Austin Freed. This is Pro Football Enterprises. We work in correlation with the Box Score Network. We are so excited to have you on board tonight. We present to you Elijah Sarratt, wide receiver from Indiana. We'll get to him in just a second. I do want to say, I was going to say this when Shane was on here, but I wanted to go ahead and get out here. We're getting down to the end of what would basically be our fiscal year, okay? And by that I mean the draft is coming up here in 2 or 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, and we have poured work into this draft thing all the way since last summer. Me and Austin and Shane, and Simon Short has as well. We put out, I don't know, I think 70, 75 prospects all the way back during the summer, the early fall. And then ever since Thanksgiving, we've gone back in and done some heavy deep dives on what will end up being about 40 prospects. We haven't covered everybody. We knew we couldn't, but it's just been a tremendous amount of work that Austin has poured in, that Shane has poured in, that Simon has poured in. And we know we're not always right, but we are always prepared. We have come to you with different viewpoints from different guys with different backgrounds. And so just a tremendous amount of work. So we're very excited. And coming up after the draft, I know a lot of you check out after the draft on draft stuff. Totally fine. You're kind of moving on, right, with more football things. But coming in May, about mid-May, third week of May, somewhere in there, you'll start seeing our watch lists come out. They'll be primarily focused on the 27 draft, but they'll be usable for college football as well for 2026. So keep that in mind. We really have enjoyed it. We'll take a bit of a break to give us all some rest, but we will be back. So tonight, Elijah Sarratt, height 6'2", weight 210. His 24 numbers had 53 catches for approaching 1,000 yards, not quite. The YPR was fantastic at 18.1. The touchdowns were 8. 25 numbers, 65 catches, saw an increase. A dip in receiving yards to 830. The YPR, of course, went way down to 12.8. Not unusual for guys that have a big season and then come back for another season, but that's larger than usual. And then he actually had 15 touchdowns, so got a lot more action in those areas. Austin, go ahead and lay out the table for us, man.
Well, first things first, Sarratt is a an older prospect. He is, I think, according to what I've seen, like the third oldest or fourth oldest receiver coming out that's expected to be drafted. At least I think
Wow.
there's a few guys who are going to be maybe undrafted who are a little bit older, but he's going to be 23 about a month after the draft ends, which is, if you know me, a big turnoff for me. I'm not into older prospects when it comes to these sort of athletically demanding positions. I think certain positions that are a little more cerebral that actually can be beneficial to have a little bit of an older prospect, but to a physically demanding position like receiver, I do prefer when they come out at a younger age, and especially when they can break out at an early age. And Surratt didn't really have that sort of super early breakout. His best years definitely were either 24 or 25. I think 25, in my opinion, is the better year because obviously the team he was on was tremendous, winning the national title and 15 touchdowns is an incredible touchdown number. Obviously, on a really high-powered offense, the whole team kind of ate. He wasn't the only one kind of
Yes,
scoring
they
touchdowns,
did.
but so that's kind of what I want to get out of the way. But when you look at the player, he to me is very reminiscent of like a Keenan Allen, a bigger guy who can play in the slot and win with footwork, and he can win outside with his just pure size and ability to go up and get the ball. He's not the most explosive athlete, but he is very physical and not afraid to use his body and his size. He does something that I don't see a whole lot of guys do, but another one I do see this in, and what kind of evokes Keenan Allen to me is he has very choppy steps throughout most of his running. Unless he's like full striding, already caught the ball, trying to race for the end zone, you're going to see him not have a lot of time where both of his feet aren't like very, very close to the ground. Like he is ready to put a foot down and make a break at any given moment, which I think is tremendous and is what helps him have such sharp breaks because he does have tremendous breaks in and out. stopping, starting up, cutting towards the sideline or inside. He does it all really well. There's not like a weak area in terms of his getting in and out of breaks, I think, which allows him to be used in multiple alignments, outside, inside, and allows him to run a really diverse route tree. So, very much like the player, especially when you combine that with super reliable hands. The guy does some of my favorite tape, like teach tape in terms of like ball snatching. The guy goes and gets the ball and immediately gets it as far away from the nearest defender as possible. Like if there's a corner on his left hip, he catches that thing and it goes to his right side. If it's vice versa, if the guy's coming from like behind him, he will catch it and immediately tuck it. If there's a guy shorter than him, who's kind of in front of him and he goes up and high points it, he will immediately turn and keep that ball away and high away from a guy. It's really great work in that. So combining all that, you get a prospect that I'm a big fan of. Unfortunately, there's not some athletic trait that I can really hang my hat on and say, he's going to be able to burn guys deep or he's going to be able to just like dominate in the red zone. At 6'2", 6'2.5", he's got good size, but not sort of game-breaking size or speed. And his quick twitch is there, but it's not elite. He doesn't have crazy contact balance. He's not great after the catch. I think he's actually rather dull after the catch. So you have just a really high floor player who is coming out at a pretty old age, comparatively, and played on a really good football team that allowed him to shine.
I'll get to my notes here in just a second. I tried to keep my notes a little bit more refined on Sarratt here. I will say on the age thing, I agree with you. I hate to knock a guy down, but it does kind of temper my enthusiasm for a guy
Mhm.
if I know he didn't burst out early and he kind of looked better as he got on, or if he had a crazy breakout year in his final year. Sarratt didn't necessarily just break out in his final year, but he also didn't break out early either, right? So you've got a guy here who's kind of gotten better each year, more or less. And so, yeah, that does temper my enthusiasm. It's hard to shove guys up into the first round when you see, hey, they were late. So, and I don't have Sarratt anywhere in the first round, but I am saying just in general across the board, when you see guys who break out late at age 22, 23, or sometimes 24, you're like, well, they've had all these extra seasons in the weight room and on tape to study things, so it does slow down the enthusiasm. What tape did I watch? I watched the first Oregon game in 25. I watched the Illinois game, the Iowa game, the Ohio State game on Sarratt. Plus, I looked at a bunch of 24 tape back during the summer as well when we covered him before. Here we go. The Yak. It's decent, but not difference making. You already said it was dull. I agree. There's not a lot there. Teams loved to press him, especially in 25. That really did limit his yak as well. Not explosive, but he produces. He will collect some yak, but it's nothing special. The hands, totally agree. Good soft hands, natural. Will make all the tough catches, but he makes the average catches too. Man, there's a lot of tough catches on tape, but there's a lot of average catches that he's focused, he's dialed in. I think it's a 3.4% drop rate, something like that. It's very low. So, I really do like the hands. The routes, you mentioned it. Very good. Very good routes. In route, out route, comeback, fade, back shoulder, screens. He's got all that, and so he can even do more, but that's most of what I saw him do in 25. The speed and the athleticism, you already mentioned it. It's fine. There's nothing elite about his athleticism. I mean, there's just nothing. It's NFL grade, but there's nothing extra there that, it's going to vault him into the first round or for me even into the top 40 personally. So that, that's where I'm at on that. Versus zone. I think he's excellent against zone, but he didn't get to do it a lot in 25. Teams really, he faced more zone in 24 than he did in 25. Teams really preferred to press him in 25 and keep a safety somewhat over the top of him. It wasn't isolated safety attention, but still, they like to kind of keep that in check. That really did hamper him. Versus man, very effective in short and boundary. Again, you already hit that. I'm duplicating that. He got pressed a lot. He responded well, but he struggled to win deep at times in 25. You can find 24 tape where he does win deep, but again, they're playing him differently. In 25, teams were largely able to suppress his deep work, but he's very good in the short and the boundary. And he kills off man by working to the inside. You try to play off man on him, he will consistently kill it to the inside. So that's why teams really prefer to just press him. That seemed to be their best option. The size, the physicality, good size and plays physical, stands up to physical play. Nobody plays, let me rephrase, no defensive backs in the country play more physical than Oregon. And he stood up to it twice and produced twice. Not massive numbers, but still, he stood up there, produced, hung in there, made the plays. And that really impressed me a lot right there when I saw the Oregon tape. He's not dominant, and he won't do a lot above the rim. You mentioned it against shorter players, he'll beat them above the rim, but he's not going to consistently like a Chris Brazel or some of the other taller receivers. He's not going to play above the rim a lot in terms of paying the bills. Deep threat, not a super speed deep threat, but teams really did make a point. Keep the safety over the top. Don't even give him a chance. And you listen, even if they didn't, he wasn't going to kill people in deep routes, but they did like to try to limit that in 25. Boundary work, very effective, very productive, shifts well. Lots of different ways to work off the defensive backs. And in the red zone, I thought he looked like a surgeon at times. You could see that in the Oregon tape. You could see that especially there. But I thought there were lots of times in routes, out routes. Man, he could be brutal to guard. You mentioned that sharp breaking ability. That's what's creating that, right? It's not his height that's creating it. It's the sharp breaking ability. So that was fantastic. And then the last note is the blocking. It's decent. There's nothing great there. The effort is okay. The technique is okay. It's never bad, but it's not a weapon either. Indiana actually weaponized Omar Cooper's blocking to some degree. Sarratt did not offer that kind of blocking as a wide receiver at all. Again, it wasn't terrible. We've seen several guys this year that were miserable. He's not, but there's nothing extra there either. So that's Elijah Sarratt. Now back to you. More thoughts on Sarratt and what range you would start looking at him at.
Yeah, so Sarratt at his pro day ran an unofficial 4.45 I saw, which
Yeah,
basically we'll call that a 4.5 flat laser time if he ran it at the combine,
right.
which is right about what I expected. I've seen some people expect him to be slower than that. I thought his game speed looked adequate, is how I. And if
Right.
I had, going down my grading sheet that I think you've seen before, Ben, like one of the check boxes there, or one of the grading scale levels is just adequate. And he just checks that box for me a lot of just like, yeah, adequate speed, adequate size. Well, maybe a little more so adequate, more than adequate size, but acceleration, bursts, which is kind of how I would view Elijah Surratt. Now, you have seen a few of these guys who check all these boxes like that really like evolve and succeed at the next level. But it's really hard to predict which ones are going to, and then which ones are going to kind of fizzle out. It seems to be almost random. I think guys who have a high work ethic and things like that, like I think Surratt does, have a better chance. And I'm willing to draft him on day two, but it would have to be sort of the back half of day two. I
Okay.
wouldn't want to reach for him in the second round, early or mid. Uh, Late second round is where I would start to feel comfortable. I would project him as a third round draft pick. He almost, in a lot of ways, reminds me of Chris Godwin. I think a slight downtick athletically, doesn't have the
Right.
yak ability that Godwin has shown to be elite. But in terms of like getting open and at the point of catch, very Chris Godwin-esque. And I think Godwin was a third round pick. Uh, so that's kind of about where I've landed. I think a mid to early third round pick is where I've got him going.
We're fairly close on him, closer than I expected us to be. Now, full disclosure here, back during the summer and all through the season, because I did a lot of summer tape on him and I watched him quite a bit because Indiana was all over the TV, right? So I watched him a lot. I was a lot higher on him. When I got back into the tape again just a few weeks ago and really dug into the 25 tape, it pulled me back down. Man, he's still my kind of guy, but I just
Mhm.
couldn't, in all honesty, look at the athleticism and the explosion and be as high on him as I really wanted to be. So I came down to him. I would start thinking about him at the middle of the second round, but in reality, I'm thinking late second round is about where I would park him. And if he slips to early third, I understand. Everybody's got to make a decision on what suits them and what they're seeing here. So that's about where I am. Late second, early third, just a little bit higher than you, not a lot here. And I really do like him, but man, if if the athleticism, the speed just isn't speaking to you, you can't put him top 40, and it's really hard to put him top 50, right? So then it's like, well, where do you slot them based on what else you're seeing? I really do like him. Final thought here on Sarratt.
Yeah, I think my last thought would be I don't want to commit to him as an outside guy or a slot guy. I
Yeah.
want to see him used in multiple ways because I think he has that ability, and kind of jarring him into one of those over the other would be a mistake. I want to see him really use all assets he's got.
Yeah, I agree. Because like to me, there's no way he's ever a number one receiver. In
Mm-mm.
some world, he might could turn into a two if he hits the perfect spot, right? In reality, though, the flexibility is there. I see a guy who could be a long-term NFL receiver and very productive. Shades of Keenan Allen, I think, is a great a spot on there, but probably not ever getting you up into man. Everybody's coveting this guy. Everybody's got to have him, but still very useful, very productive is where I think I see Elijah Sarratt going. All right, Austin, really enjoyed it. Thank you for the work tonight, and everybody, thank you for watching. The draft is coming up. It is not far away. Stay tuned. Have a great one. Bye.